order the Planning Commission regular session, Civic Center, 500 Tazewell Avenue, February 5th, 2019. Can I have a roll call, please?
Grossman present.
D'Amico present.
Strube present.
Sauerkraut present.
Costa present.
We have a quorum, show that Commissioner Dennis McCoy is not present. Can we all stand for a moment of silence and pledge of allegiance? Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May be seated. The consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda format?
Okay, public comments?
Oh, I'm sorry. Any public comments?
There are
No public comments. I'm sorry. Okay. Now, do I have an approval of the agenda format?
I had the agenda form where it's going, I had comments on the meeting minutes.
That's going to come next.
Okay, all right. I make a motion that we accept the agenda.
Second.
I second it.
Mr. Strauss seconded.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now the minutes. Approval of the minutes. Anybody have any questions?
I had one at the end, and this is probably what maybe we walked away with, but I know council had the same thing. When we talked about the 45 and 60,
Yep.
we made a motion, replace reverse angle parking with front end along Mason Avenue at 60 degrees. That's written, but I think it should be 45.
45, that's correct. That's correct. As a matter of fact, it was changed up above. It says, unfinished business, replace reverse angle parking, unfinished business A, parking joint working group. It says replace reverse angle parking with front end parking where reverse angle parking is currently located, and change the angle from 60 degrees angle to a 45 degree angle.
But it was a bit of confusion.
I
so
know.
wrote it down.
We don't know which way 60 and which way is 45. That's the real thing. So
Yeah, when it was
I know.
okay.
it was presented at council that way, and they corrected everybody. So you
So
know,
which is it?
it's supposed to be 45, but the 45 degrees is from head end. So if the curve
It bisects it.
is, if the curve is the 180 degree line and 90 degrees is straight in, it's 45 off of that, right?
Yep. That makes sense.
Okay, not 60.
Any other comment they had on the other business, the last bullet, Paul Grossman asked about a plan of action, or a plan of action list, and I would say instead of 4, which would include comprehensive plan. That was just one of a number of things I was going to propose.
You want to add a fourth one?
No, I want to change that third bullet, strike 4, and insert that would include reviewing the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
I wanted to present a number of items which are
Right.
in today's agenda. So that's the way it should be worded. It's an action
Did you get that?
list.
I can, but I can tell you,
Well-
I can go back through,
Well-
but once you say something in another minute, I'll change it, but once you say something in another minute, I listen very carefully what
Okay,
you're
okay.
saying. You can't add stuff that was not actually said.
Okay, I'm just trying to repeat what I thought I said from a month ago.
No,
So
because I don't remember that.
okay, that's fine.
I'm sorry.
Then we don't accept that. All right, that's fine.
And excuse me, Mr. Chair, are we changing the motion? Are we gonna redo this motion?
Which motion?
The Mason angle parking 60 degree, we're gonna change that now to 45 degree?
Well, it's in reality, that's what we meant, we just didn't know the difference
Yes.
between the 60 and the 45. We met that, and we were corrected by town council.
Because I did.
Because we
Yeah,
talked.
I went back to town council this afternoon and looked,
Yes.
and it had a clarification in the diagrams.
Yes, it did. So I guess for our purposes, if.
I think it would be best to change that, so we don't have confusion here down the line.
Consistent. We meant, that's what we meant.
That's what we meant.
I figured after the town planner and I got talking, but again, I got the
Yeah,
right. as
Yeah, I'll move to approve the meeting, the minutes,
amended.
as,
Second.
All right, so we have approval of the minutes as amended and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Reports. Well, we have the town planner, Zach, has given us just an update here on town council. It was kind of like on the bike trail. It basically didn't. I don't think it says it here but it's been. They want us to postpone it, right, until 2020.
That's correct.
Resubmit the full.
Yeah, they postponed the application until fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's because they're not sure of the lighting at the food line.
I believe that was an issue, the light at the food line, but also,
Right. The other was the terminus and getting that all straight with the town on where the terminus would be.
and then I think they had concerns about the environmental
Impact of the railroad cleanup, right.
of the what?
The railroad.
Yeah.
Are there any concerns or questions from the commissioners here on the report? I glanced through the new beach and dune management plan. I haven't gotten a chance to read the entire thing in its entirety, but it looks pretty good. So if anybody has any comments on that?
I believe we have a public meeting here on
Right.
that.
I also just wanted to point your attention to number 5 and number 6 in points of interest. Those are the sign ordinance update and a parking and loading requirements update. So the possible proposed text amendments, which is really almost a complete update of those sections, are included as attachments. But those are just for reference to prepare, because they're pretty lengthy and pretty time consuming to go through. So
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those commissioners that weren't here the last time we did the sign ordinance, it took us about, 6 months?
Oh, a year and a
Maybe.
half.
Year and a half.
I was trying to be generous. So it's important, and one of the things, is wayfinding is in that, but also I believe the current sign ordinance prohibits sandwich boards, but we've kind of let it go because we were waiting for the wayfinding. So, but anyway, I did read the redo of the sign ordinance. It's pretty thorough. I would assume that you're going to give us information on the background on some of the stuff that you put in there and where it came from
recognition of the fact that after we had done all that, the Supreme Court
Yeah,
had a very momentous ruling that basically, well, severely affected all that. And everything had to be very simple and short and sweet kind of thing, so we can't go back anymore because of that decision. That's all.
Was that decision, like, content regulation, is that what that was about?
it was content and also, you know, infringing on First Amendment rights,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
so that's, yeah, this, I took that into account in this update, for sure.
And I guess the complexity of what was written, you know, it's too hard for people to figure out in all those sentences and things what was meant. And so,
Like the number of signs, you know, in a yard, and what the content of those that signage and whatnot, so.
Yeah, hopefully we can take that into account and clarify that for applicants and property owners.
Does it take into account wind feathers and flags?
Yes, yes, all of that.
temporary.
Yeah, to me, I think you're gonna have to take the existing and mark it up
Right,
with the changes in order to see
Right.
clearly what is being either deleted or revised.
Yeah, I can work on that.
okay.
How would you say we're going to attack this? We're gonna divide it up and work on it every month?
Back what?
The sign ordinance.
No.
Tell you what, it's, I think the first thing I think the best way to do it is just what we said, is to take the current regulation, and if you can, you know, do a track changes type of a thing with the new, and so we could see. Now, it would behoove us as commissioners to also provide us, like those changes that you made, where that came from, you know, what, so we can go to that information. We're gonna get into some of this other stuff a little later on.
Highlighted, you know, what the changes, you know, somewhere.
Yeah, let's track changes for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Are we in favor of sandwich boards or no?
Well, if you look at the one that he put in here, it says sandwich boards are okay as long as they don't impede traffic, and they, you know, foot traffic, and, you know, they have to be put up in the morning and taken down in the evening.
They're gonna be standardized.
They are requirements as far as the size and what they could have on it and the make.
And
The reason why I asked, and I think that's the biggest issue right now, some of them, I mean, you know, you can't even see if you're not really looking for them, and a traditional sandwich board is a waist height, and it's kind of hard to miss it.
Can't be over 4 feet, so, yeah. They have menu boards on there, so it's in there.
How about distance from the front to the storefront?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's in there too.
I'll stop asking questions.
Well, yeah, I recommend reading it, and then
We have
Please.
I think the purpose of me putting it in the monthly report would be to get y'all's feedback on what the town wants, you know, and then, of course, we'll involve the public.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, this is me thinking of what would be best for the town, so.
One more question, Jack. What about those who have patios, delineated patios in front of their places? Will they still allow to be sandwich boards outside of the fence?
It would not be allowed in the right of way. But that
Then the answer is no.
If the
If
patio
the patio goes up to the right of way,
then the answer would be no, that's correct.
Okay.
In general, half the sidewalk belongs to the town and half is for the merchants, so. But the extent to which that's being followed, that's something else.
other questions on signs?
So for our next meeting, we should be prepared by doing what?
Well, I don't know if Zach
I'll
will
be
be,
the
I
next
don't know
meeting
if
or
he
not.
will have he may not have the opportunity or the time to take the current one and mark it up. If he does, then it would be incumbent upon us to take a look at that and start making,
See if you agree with it.
start making comments.
I like-
It's gonna take a lot of time.
So so what you're saying is you want him to change the entire thing
I
to the
didn't
way
say
we
that.
want it?
No,
No, with the changes and the italics or however he's gonna do it, to
If
show
there
us
are.
what it was.
Look at the old one. and-
we have the old one, we have the current one that
Right.
that we took a year and a half to do.
How long ago was that?
3 years ago, 4 years ago.
But that was before the Supreme Court ruling, that has to be addressed.
And, you know, our current town manager was part of that. I think he ended it, it came in on, prior to his watch. But then he got involved in it, and then right after we got it approved, the Supreme Court came out with this thing, and he says, well, that threw a monkey wrench in the whole thing, so. So anyway, so take what we currently have and put your changes into it through marked track changes. And, you know, that way we can see what we currently have and what you propose, or any additions. And then, but make sure what you put in there, we can understand where it came from, okay, or what's the basis of it.
Yeah, and I think just in relation to signs, some of it is gonna be town preference, you know, it's not like best practices, it's really preference for what we want, so.
No.
I'll start off with, you know, what I think the preference should be, and then that could be just a discussion, and then I'll add, of course.
But this shouldn't slow down the wayfaring signs, that's still the
Oh, that- yeah, that's
priority.
completely
This is
different.
about, you know, how long real estate signs can stay in the yard after a sale and things like that. But those wayfaring signs, everybody wants that. And
You know, I did notice that I didn't see anything in there on political signs.
We already talked about that.
Okay, so that's a big thing here, okay? Especially the before and after. So,
It's the after that's usually the issue.
yeah. So,
You mean just then, yeah, well, we can discuss.
yeah. Okay, any other questions on the sign ordinance? All right, the next one is the language on parking. I think it's pretty far down here. And it's really, there's two clauses, really. Isn't that about the gist of it? There's two things that we're trying to incorporate.
Well, this, I think it goes along the same lines as what we just discussed on signs.
I think,
It is, but if you've looked at this over, it says that the parking working group,
no, that's
That's a
not action
separate-
item,
that's a
this is,
separate item. Okay.
the one in the monthly report is a rewrite like the sign ordinance. But then there's an action item tonight that discusses propose text amendments to the parking.
okay, I stand corrected, I see what, yeah.
Mhm.
So again, we'd have to take the current, overlay this, and show the
Right.
changes.
Yeah. And I can do that as well. To the parking.
it pretty much summarizes what we've talked about in previous meetings and is, okay, sensitive to the latest ordinance on that, with, you know, what's gonna happen. And spaces have to have numbers that go to the condo and all like that.
But it also talks about loading.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's essentially taking two sections and combining them to one section. Two sections of the current ordinance and combining them into one section of the new proposed ordinance. As they go hand in hand, we could keep them separate. It's just a simplification process,
Okay,
just an organization thing.
So again, if you can do the same thing, and I would assume that some of these, like the, required loading spaces, information, there's something where that came from. So if you can just make sure that you reference that, it'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other
Well, the priority,
unfinished
I
business?
guess in priority fashion, does signs come before parking?
That would be up to
Us.
you all.
You know, we're gonna talk about some stuff here at the end here, and, like the priorities that you had talked about.
Yep.
And so that's gonna be us to make the determination on how we wanna proceed. Okay, any other unfinished business? New business. Application for conditional use permit, accessory dwelling unit on the property in the residential 1 district at 615 Monroe Avenue. Review the application and set March 5th, 2019 as a public hearing date. So the applicant wants to put in a accessory dwelling unit, a complete accessory dwelling unit with I guess a garage and a workspace down below and a living area above, and he would use that for guests. That's the intent at the present time.
That's great.
Is it gonna be 2 stories?
It's a 2-story, going to be 23 feet and 1 inch in height,
Yeah, okay.
which meets all, and the application meets all the requirements.
Okay.
As far as the setbacks, the height. So the planning commission, the town planner recommends approval. Staff recommendation is approval. It still has to go before the Historic District Review Board to get a certificate of appropriateness. I guess that would be on there this month.
They have not applied so far, so no.
No? Do they have to get the certificate of appropriateness before it goes to a public hearing?
Not necessarily. I think that they're desiring to know if they can do the use prior to, if they want to build the actual structure.
Okay, guys. Okay, all right, yeah.
They currently have a shed on their lot, and that would be removed after the,
That's gonna be replaced by,
By the house.
the house. Well, that shed is, by that accessory dwelling unit, is not in that shed's footprint. At least that's what the sketch shows.
okay.
On the other side.
Yep.
And parking, I understand, will come in from the alleyway. They'll have a space for the accessory dwelling unit.
Yes, they also have adjacent to their house, there's access to the rear as well.
I didn't think you said that was specific, that they could use that. Which I took to mean they could use the street also.
They can,
Oh, there, okay.
and that's what it says in the draft.
Yeah, they're required to at least provide two, I believe it's 2 off-street parking spaces.
Okay.
questions of the planner?
I'll make a motion that we accept the application as stated and schedule a public hearing on March 5th.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay, next is a proposed text amendment to the town zoning ordinance, Article 4, Section 4.0, review and make recommendations to staff. Okay, so this, I guess this is just you're removing, you remove,
Well, yeah, I can.
yeah, what, can you
Yeah.
kind of go over this with us? And
Yeah, so as I was looking at the ordinance, of course, section 4.0 is the first section in the general, I forgot the wording, but applying to all
General
districts.
provisions or
Yeah,
whatever.
general provisions applying to all districts. And so I figured that it would be, and just looking at the current one, it's kind of interesting how it's written. It's, and again, I can, do the whole side-by-side thing. I did not do that in this either. But it gives you the answers. It's kind of just written weird. It's not necessarily regulations, it's more questions. Of course, they're meant to be regulated in that way, but just the way that the current ordinance is written, I just wanted to clear it up a little bit. And I thought that it would be a good start to the process of the zoning ordinance update.
Okay, so we as commissioners, first of all, he has a charge to go through all the ordinances and make changes and updates and whatnot. As a matter of fact, Larry did that too. He was doing that. So for us, as commissioners, we need to give him feedback on how we would best like to see that done. For example, do we want, if it's something as simple as this, do we want to have that a cutout of that part of the ordinance with the strike-throughs or in the insertions? Does it make it simpler for us as commissioners to see that? And instead of having to go to the ordinance and looking, you see what I'm saying? It makes our job a little easier.
What's the easiest way for you to use that?
I
That
think-
gives us full visual of what's being suggested.
I think the easiest way would be as what's been discussed, where you take the Word document and you actually edit the Word document. It shows the lines drawn through and what the additions are. I think that I just didn't do it that way. I should have probably done it to begin with. So, and I do think that that would be the easiest way to compare the two, old to the new, and facilitate the discussion as to what's changing and what's not.
And your charge, your objective with going through all of the all ordinances is to bring clarity and make them concise, understandable, and direct. Is that true or false?
For the most part, yeah. And then there's some inconsistencies I've seen, specifically in like the zoning districts, and some definitions that are missing, things like that that I think are important. But then the signs, the whole sign section is something that I think we're regulating things we shouldn't, as we mentioned with the Supreme Court.
I call that job security. Huh?
And I try to make it complicated so you guys can't understand. Yeah, so.
Thank you.
I had a question on the removal of the 8 uses. I understand it makes it really clear leaving it there, but will I find the exact wording elsewhere that precludes it from a district? There is a case you don't know what, for 0C says without having it lined up, but I'm saying we had it where we excluded certain things there. You know, there's funerals and funeral parlors and fireworks and kennels and what have you. I don't mind removing it here if you can find those exact words
Elsewhere.
for that particular district and say, hey, you can't build these in that district. Then I don't need it here.
Yeah, well, so specifically, this is not necessarily district, it's just home occupations, so it would really be towards home occupation, not district. It wouldn't be regulated by district, it'd be regulated by, I am a primary residence, so in that sense it is district because it's a residential district, but I'm wanting to supplement, I'm wanting to do something other than just be a resident there, I want to have a business. So, all that to say, I think that these 8 things can be within the new ordinance, and even in the old, I think that you can go through each one. So for instance, kennels, you can go through it and look and see that the nine regulations there are already telling you can't have a kennel. Or for instance, sexually oriented business, like all of this here, up here, following standards are complied to at all times, those will prohibit that anyway. So essentially, I felt that they were redundant in a sense, that they're already being regulated, not expressively, not saying, you can't have a sexually oriented business, but it's implied by the other, or it's enforced by the other restrictions.
These other 9, you're saying?
Yes, yeah.
So take that one, sexual oriented business. Which one would preclude?
Let's see. Sexually oriented business, so, yeah, well, so like 7.
Kennels, take kennels.
Okay, we'll do kennels. So there shall be, let's see, so outdoor storage, display materials. I mean, you're gonna be kenneling them outside, that will be regulated again by accessory structure, like how many accessory structures you have on your property, so that would go into it as well.
Put them in the basement.
If there is a basement.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, so.
Yeah, so
Yeah, you're
my
right.
input would be keep them. People have seen them here.
Yeah.
If it makes it difficult to go read into one of these and say, oh, kennels fit in this one, and another one fits in another one. It may be just as easy just to leave them.
Okay. Can I make a recommendation though of illegal drugs and equipment? I mean, that's pretty redundant. I feel like. Obviously, you're not allowed to have illegal drugs as a home occupation. But we can keep it. It's just a suggestion.
I have no problem.
But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't want to have people try to interpret and then fighting wordsmithing with you.
I understand.
Okay, so that's the home occupation one. The next one was the proposed text amendments to the town zoning ordinance, Article 4, Section 4.5.f.1.k and 4.5.1. I imagine this is the same as the other one.
Well, this one you're looking for very specific approval or disapproval from us.
This is the part, yeah, this is the one, yeah, this is the parking, okay.
So, yeah. So these two, 4.5.1 is the table of parking standards. I'm recommending adding mixed-use development as one of the nature of uses. So nature of uses would be residential, commercial, industrial, and then under that it would be, they don't have it on me, but, a type of use, retail or bakery or
Restaurant.
fireworks stand, restaurant. So adding mixed use as one of those nature of uses. And then the regulations that would go with that would be taken from, and these regulations are taken from, the multifamily regulations, which state 1 space per 1 bedroom dwelling unit, otherwise 2 spaces per dwelling unit is required. So that's just taken straight from the multifamily. But then in addition, under mixed use development, there would also be, where is it? Plus 1 additional space per 200 square feet of gross commercial floor area. And that would be, so currently what we're doing is we're using multifamily, but then we're also using per use in a mixed use development.
So you have retail, it's 100, restaurants 200, or whatever, and then,
But a lot of times, a mixed use development, when they're being built, don't have the tenants, don't know exactly what type of, whether it's gonna be retail. They can kind of build it towards restaurant or retail, but it could be office space, it could be something that would require other parking standards. And so as they're going through that permitting process, we don't really know how many spaces,
right.
definitely how many spaces they would need.
And then there's also the requirement to clearly delineate the parking, where the parking is within a mixed-use development. It has to be marked by a sign, right?
Yeah, it would only be the residential aspect
Right.
of the mixed use.
Right.
So those specific spaces for the residential portion would have a sign similar to like a handicap sign or something that states residential only parking. And
But
then,
that's not in here right now.
no, it's
It's on the next one?
mhm.
Okay. Got it, yes.
Yep. So it would read, marking and maintenance in that little section. It would also include for new construction mixed-use developments. Again, this would only be for new construction, not currently existing, those would be grandfathered. For new construction development, mixed-use developments, parking stalls for residential units shall be identified by appropriate signage.
And the parking subcommittee, of which
Diane?
three of us here
Yes, that's
are on, plus the town manager, the town planner, and some other folks from Main Street have seen this and have agreed to this, the last parking subcommittee. So it was also, just for your own knowledge on this, is that remember when you said there were phases in this parking, phase 1, 2, and 3? The second phase now is kind of determined, instead of putting it in one package, is to kind of submit the stuff as they look at it, because it's so convoluted and whatnot, because we're talking about the parking for mixed use, we're talking about loading zones, we're talking about Pine Street, we're talking about parking lots. So it could take some time. So instead of trying to package that all together and submitting it forward, let's do it in a piecemeal fashion. So that's what this first phase of this is. And by the way,
Dealing with mixed use.
right, this will take, if this is approved, it will be for new construction. So everything that's under construction now, it's not.
Is mixed-use development the name of a zone? Or is it just where we put things that are lots of different things?
It's essentially when there's two different types of uses, primarily like residential over commercial, we consider mixed use.
So it's not like a planned development or anything like that?
A planned development could have mixed use components to it, mixed use development in there. But, and I would say, because the Harbor District is
It's mixed use.
primarily mixed use.
It's mixed use, or, matter of fact, think
It's all.
it's,
Yeah, it's all-
it's
Yeah,
all
they're
mixed
required
use.
to
That's
have
correct. It's,
commercial,
yeah, it
50%
can't be, I mean, it can't have apartments. It has to have commercial
Right now.
yeah, right now.
Yeah, so this would affect all the development that goes on.
Yeah.
If
Well,
it's
and that's
adopted.
And remember, the two Patrick Inn buildings are in the Harbor District.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I got a question that was here. Regulated by HOA is what?
Homeowners Association, so like a condo, if you have condos,
Oh.
like he has there, because he has to have, he's got an HOA there.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be like if someone parked in a handicap spot, they get a
Yeah,
ticket.
gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, and the other thing was on your recommendations there, set an agenda for a March joint session with town council. Wouldn't we just adopt this here, go to a public meeting? And from the public meeting, our recommendations go to town council?
Yeah, you're right.
It would.
I missed,
No, wait, say that again.
Well, under normal, just like the last time, we approved it, and what we approved went forward to town council
Right.
for their approval. Okay, and then they called a public hearing, and a joint public hearing between the planning commission and the town council, and after there were no comments, and after that, the town council then took the issue up and they approved it. So that was the question, why can't we do it that way? Now, I'd also asked, and it's in here, to have the town planner consider us as a commission meeting with our counterparts, the Harbor Area Review Board, the Historic District Review Board, the Wetlands and Dune Board, and the Board of Appeals, that we do a joint session with them or something, so we know what's going on, and that's in here too. So I don't know if this is part of that, but we meet with the town council a lot, so, I mean, we're okay.
yeah, it was just a typo.
Okay, all right.
It was not a suggestion I meant to make.
All right, so again, you're looking for approval tonight if we agree to this, at which time then we will schedule a public meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're talking about this table of parking standards, is 4.5.
Yeah.
Just that.
Just these two changes. Yeah, that, yeah, next one.
So, is there any other discussion on this? So can we get a motion to?
I'll make a motion that we accept the changes proposed for section 451 and 45F1K.
Okay. I'll second it. Okay, we have a motion and a second. And this is going to go forward to, this would go forward to town council. Or set up a public hearing.
Yeah, public hearing.
Advertise public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would,
Okay.
yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Now, are you going to try to get this into the March 5th?
We could, that's too.
We have time, we have. All right. Any other new business? Okay, so we have some other business. So Commissioner Grossman here sent me an email. It's the next thing on your in your packet. And it kind of goes back to what do we want to do here, and where do we want to focus our efforts. And Paul was kind enough to put together a list because, you know, he is our town council representative, so he knows some of the stuff too, but anyway,
I had a couple of add-ons too.
so, yeah, so anyway, it's not in any order of
Yeah,
priority.
if you want me to just run down them,
Yeah,
that's the
go ahead.
why, you decide, no, that's not for us.
Okay.
Or let me know who you think it should go. Obviously, the comprehensive plan update is ours, okay. The bike trail, what I'm looking there is working with the county on phase 4. Now, phase 4 hasn't been, I don't think, finalized. There's 3 or so options that they're proposing on phase 4 as the terminus into Cape Charles. Right now, from what I see, is everything is ending up into the Shanty parking lot, coming under the hump. But there's 3 avenues that can come down into that direction. To me, we should be looking at what would we propose rather than have it dictated to us on what they think. And again, I would couple it with a new item I would put is the community trail. When you look at the community trail and its future phases, it has trails going up that way too. So to me, the trail needs to marry up with the bike trail in order to be consistent and the way we would want it to be done. So that's why I had put that on the list as to.
Okay, well, on that point, heretofore, in terms of the trail so far, there's always been a part of the town staff dedicated to that, and that work has been ongoing side by side with us. We haven't gotten directly involved, have we? with
No.
it? Now, has
Information,
anything changed on that
it's
front?
been informational to us.
Yeah.
Well,
information.
I agree with what you're saying, but here's where I think we need to start looking ahead, is that plan was approved in 2007. Things have changed since. You saw what we went through on Peach Street. When we were ready to implement that section, there was a public upheaval. Okay, well, let's get in front of some of this stuff and at the same time agree with where it's going right now and tie it into the bike trail so that we are consistent on what we would like as a town.
Plus, it is part of the comp plan.
Yeah, but aren't there town people already doing that? No?
The only person that was intimately involved in the multi-use trail was Bob King.
And he's
Right.
not doing that anymore?
Well, you remember, he's the project manager. He doesn't decide where the trail goes. He takes direction from the town manager and says, okay, we're ready to implement this.
Okay,
As a project manager, go make it happen.
okay. Now, does the town council want us to get, this is something new.
Yeah, okay, now here's my list.
Yeah.
From tonight, if we agree that we should be involved with this, either Bill or myself will bring the list to town council and saying, here's what we're looking to get involved. We'd like your approval, or strike what you feel is not appropriate.
Okay.
And then we
So
can
we
come
give a
back.
shopping list, so to speak. Rather than having them originate things that come down to us, we say, here's some things you might want us to, ask us to do.
Right.
Okay.
That was the intent of putting something
Okay.
together.
And personally, I agree that there should be a linkage between the multi-use trail and that. I mean, if there's a disconnect, somebody's gonna, what's going on?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So,
Okay.
And where's the scope? We may be able to take advantage of the bike trail, call it the community trail, and have the county pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we need to make sure they're married up and ending where we think they should be ending.
Yeah, definitely important. I just thought that
Okay.
resources were already being applied to that, and apparently not, so that's a void that we need to fill.
Okay, so that was why I added item number
Okay.
7 was a community trail, which we just talked about.
Okay.
Zoning ordinances is really a Zach.
yeah,
He'll talk his priorities there. Next one, the town council had asked for an expansion of the historic district review board.
And what does that mean?
They want
The
to
number of
move
people?
the number of people and add a council person to it.
I thought the
And
board
they haven't
board
decided
had
that yet.
who,
No, they've decided that.
Well, it hasn't come, town manager has not said anything.
Well, that's just it. I haven't seen it come from town manager through to commissions, and that's where I find some times and falls
Yes,
out.
I know that they had this meeting,
Work session.
they had a work session.
Right, and that's the way we left it, right?
But you
How many
can't,
members
you
you
can't
want?
make-
but you can't make a motion at a work
In
session.
a work session.
That's-
Gotcha. Okay, all right, well, it's on the list, expect it to happen.
No, wait,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
wait a second, let's go back and revisit that.
Go ahead.
You mentioned that town council wants, what do they want the planning commission to do?
To change the ordinance for historic
District.
to include 7, with one being town council person.
How many does it have now?
5. And they've got into some situations where they're holding meetings with 3 people. I know there were at least 2 meetings with 3 people.
Of course, you get into quorum too, issues, because, our quorum is 3, right?
And theirs is 2, theirs is 3.
No.
No, ours
So,
is
you know-
4. Ours is 4.
And that's 4, okay.
Theirs is 3,
Got it.
because
I mean, the quorum has to be changed
Yeah,
to.
that's correct, that's correct, that's correct.
That's okay.
All right. Parking, there's a number of items here, and I added another one here. Obviously, phase 1, Mason Avenue is ongoing. 2, to me, was side streets off of Mason. 3 is Bay. And another one I would add is the parking behind the library.
Well, that's part of phase 2.
Okay, good.
We've been
All right,
talking- We've been talking
Yeah,
about
this
this.
is.
All right, good.
So you got 3 people right here in a row.
Parking
Good.
subcommittee, it's a meeting every time we get together and.
Yeah.
All right, so that was already
Matter
on.
of fact, just as an aside to that, at the last parking subcommittee, which was last week, the town planner was charged with getting the specific information on that parking lot and the outcome of that back to for our next meeting, so, yeah.
Okay,
Can I also, just real quick, I wanted to say for number 4, that would also include a zoning ordinance update as well, to change the requirements in the zoning ordinance for historic. Just to keep that on the radar.
For number 4.
It's the historic
Adding
district
diversity.
review board.
Oh, yeah, okay.
all right, going along with parking,
Wait a minute,
okay.
the historic district is.
Okay. What else?
Okay.
Okay.
Then 5B was boat trailer parking on streets in historic. Now, granted, General Assembly was supposed to be handling that if that got passed, which I think it went through some, but I hadn't heard it yet approved.
It's not approved yet, I checked.
Yeah, okay, so, well, I'm giving you a heads up, once approved, they're gonna be looking for, okay, so what do we wanna regulate? Okay, you should have been thinking about this ahead of time.
They're gonna be looking for that?
No,
Oh,
the town council.
Oh,
will-
town council, okay,
Yes.
gotcha,
It's
gotcha.
gonna say, okay, how do we wanna handle these oversized vehicles?
You
Trailers,
got certain
RVs.
widths on certain streets that are different
You
from
know,
others.
so we're, I mean, that's right. I mean, we can say, we can put a time frame on it, we can put certain streets on it, I mean, so we need to, and there's gotta be something, we're gonna be asked to do some sort of a,
So that's why I got it on the list as something that we can take on, research other towns and see what they've got.
Mhm.
This has come up many times,
Yes.
Right.
many, many, many times.
There was one little point from the company years back when we talked about this that I hadn't heard it mentioned since, and that is, and I think it came from the chief of police, that there already is, probably at least a state law, that if the boat and or trailer is parked in such a way that a vehicle is forced to cross the double line in the middle, then that's unacceptable,
That's
and
correct.
something would have to be done. And so there are probably plenty of opportunities for that already without anything further being done as at least a step in that direction. Because some people have actually had crashes because, they won't cross that center line for love or money. It's just a deeply ingrained habit. And so that's part of what can be,
There's also a thing that says that they're not supposed to be parked in the same spot for more than 48 hours.
is that true too? Okay, I didn't know that one. Okay. So, yeah, those are two.
Except I believe that's the one that they can't enforce because it says after 48 hours, they have to go to an approved parking area, and there is no approved parking area.
Okay, well, but then, yeah, that's not enforceable.
No.
Okay.
All right. 5E, the other parking, that's part of zoning ordinance that changes.
Okay.
Number 6, I had the Northampton comp plan, and really what I'm looking there for us to do is watch it go through, monitor, and when it comes out next draft form, be able to review it and provide recommendations to the town council on, hey, it's fine, or it impacts us, and here's where it impacts, and this is what I think you should be doing.
So, and we've done this in the past, and we've, matter of fact, I don't know, a year and a half ago, we sent a letter because they did not, they took the town edge out, and that meant that we didn't have any say
Right.
about our historic entrance, and so that went around and around, and they finally put it back in. But that's our main concern, is the historic entrance.
And it may be that simple, because I've gone through the previous draft, and I didn't see anything that, but again, this is me,
Right.
new.
That's fine, that's fine. I think we're probably pretty much in agreement with that. We don't want something.
Well, again, maybe for Zach too, I mean, the town planner certainly be intimately
Oh,
involved
yeah.
in that.
And they have been pretty good at, when they put the changes, they put the changes online as they do it. I mean, so if they haven't, you know, if they have a session and they make changes, then it's put on the county website. So it's just a matter of following that.
All right, so just as a point of interest, Andrew Fulmer is on, right, the county planning commissioner, talked to him today in the post office. He said they're developing an RFP, essentially starting over again.
Yeah, and they're gonna get somebody to come in and lead this effort.
An RFP for what?
A consultant to come in and help the county comp plan rewrite.
Oh, okay.
It was rejected by the board of
I'm
supervisors.
sorry, I left it followed.
Okay. 7, we already talked community trail, and the last one I had was sidewalk management plan. This again, we need some further direction from town council, but sidewalk management plan, they have talked at some of our strategic meetings with regards to getting a grip on, it's one thing for new houses to go in and require sidewalks. It's the case where houses are already built and don't have sidewalks. What are we gonna do? So again, I don't have an answer. I know that's a subject to me that would fall into our bailiwick to come up with proposals, recommendations, or what have you, as to what we think. And again, it comes with cost, but that would all be factored into alternatives,
Yeah.
one of which would be do nothing. So that's what I had as a list.
Well, I thank you for your
No.
doing that, and I'm sure everybody else does. If anybody else feels so inclined, please, that's what we're here for.
Have we ever discussed that sidewalk? People who,
On what?
on if you already built your home and you didn't have a sidewalk, did it?
We've never
I
discussed
didn't
it.
think
At least
so.
that's.
No, that's a dead subject.
And we had somebody from the public come up, boy, that'd be 6-9 months ago now, and ask for us to get into it. So council finally at least come to grips on, hey, we've got to do
Well,
something.
and there was somebody had new construction,
Well, that too,
and
yes.
then they asked for a variance to not put it in, and I guess the town council approved that, right?
No,
No,
No, they didn't.
no,
sidewalks going in.
well, when?
You'll have to ask town manager. The last I had talked to him, probably 2 months ago, he was working with VDOT to actually map jog a little bit around telephone pole and guy wire.
No, it doesn't.
All right,
It's just that the people don't want it that close to their window.
well, that too, but all I'm saying is
That's
that
why
they
it has to
agree
jog.
that they have to go ahead with it, and he's trying to work with VDOT to get their concurrence before they go through full start.
Did the town agree to pay any money if it does have to do that, to
No.
share the cost?
No,
All right.
so what I'd like to do is, if this is at least a start, this can be modified as we go, but I'd like to take this list and bring it to town council with your concurrence to say, okay,
Yeah,
these are things.
I can be there, so.
Okay.
Are there any items that are time sensitive on the list?
Well, some things that you're working on, Mason Avenue, parking,
We got the parking pretty much
Yeah.
under control, and we try to keep everybody here informed on what's going on.
and we know the comprehensive plan will kick off in March, so timeframe, April, maybe. At least
Yeah,
that's.
so it's set in springtime, so,
Right.
yeah.
I'd like to see the sidewalks and the boat and the trailer parking.
Yeah, well, what I'd like to do, once agreed to, we can start divvying up amongst ourselves. Right, perhaps working in pairs to pick up your subject and then keep coming back to the meeting here and saying, here's what I've done and where I'm
And
going.
I think the bike path thing might not be, even though it's been pushed to the right some, we could start that sometime, in the next several months.
Yeah, so what I propose is we come back from town council approval, and then our next step is to say, how do we divvy it up?
Then what you really want to know, is there anything on this list that we don't want to have?
Right, that's
Okay.
for us to.
And does the town council have things that we've overlooked that they want to?
Well, that's what we'll find out.
That they please be invited?
Well, there is one thing that it's on this list here, that we're gonna get to next, but, I knew the thing about the Historic District Review Board from just reading the agenda packet.
And why would we get involved in that one if the town council's already?
They want us to rewrite the
Ordinance.
ordinance. So, along with
Just the
town-
part that says how many
the
people
town
are in
plan,
it?
the town
Yeah,
plan, yeah, basically, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And
So
Coral.
you would rewrite it, you
So,
would give it to us, and we'd send it to
People
them.
put the
So
draft
that-
together,
Why don't we give it to them?
we look at Zach's draft of that, yeah.
Right.
Right.
Public meeting, go through stuff.
Okay, wait. I don't understand why that has to go through us to go to the town council. Why can't the staff write that and give it to the town council?
Because ordinance updates have to go.
It's an ordinance, has to go through the planning,
Okay.
all ordinance updates.
All right.
It's just like you making any changes to an ordinance, just like Larry did, making changes. I mean, even if they're just minor changes, and you still gotta have, it has to go to public hearing and everything.
I would suggest we take out 5A, B, and C.
Well, I mean, that's
Parking's
parking,
already
but it's just a matter of telling them that we're involved. We
Are
are
you
involved.
involved with Bay Avenue?
Well, that, we haven't gotten to that point.
But are you intending on getting?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
part of the future plan.
All right, but that doesn't mean that we eliminate it from here, it's gonna have to come through
It's
here
here.
anyway.
We just delegate it to the Main Street.
Well, yeah, what to do? I mean, it's not like we have to do anything, because we're already on
We
it.
know it's.
Well, you see, the thing is that Main Street does not, Bay Avenue is not included in Main Street.
Right.
So,
In the future plan,
no.
No, it's not.
Main Street is a designated area. The designated area ends
Oh, I see.
at the Northampton Hotel. Right?
okay.
Okay.
So I'll type up something for you to review, and then modify it as needed, and then we'll put it on the agenda.
That's fine. Thank you. Thank you for the good job. Okay, the next item is, I had asked the town planner to put in this, just as for informational, but it's the agenda and staff report the town council had at their strategic planning session on January the 26th. I don't know if any of you had a chance to read the town manager's report, but the big thing was all their priorities, the town council priorities. If you please take a look at those if you haven't had a chance, because some of them do affect us, and it's just good to know, because in reality, we should have input to the capital improvement plan. But there are a couple of items in here that they specifically call out, or at least one that they call out, like here's a sidewalk, they want a sidewalk ordinance.
Yeah, now let me just explain, this was going into the strategic meeting,
This,
all right?
Yeah.
Coming out of it, we set, I think, 6 priorities. As town council, this is what we want to focus now. It has a lot of subtasks, so let me just go through what we had walked. Yeah. One was preventative maintenance for our infrastructure.
Say it again.
Preventative maintenance on our current infrastructure. You take something like the sewage plant.
Right.
Things are breaking down, but we don't feel that there's an adequate preventative maintenance plan put together. Well, what about the harbor? What about the beach? What about, so we wanted to focus on getting that up to snuff. One had to do with the CIP, the capital improvements plan. One, to really put together a policy on how we're going to address capital improvements. And 2, then put a capital improvements plan that goes out many years. Right now, we kind of deal with 1 year at a time. We want to put together how we're going to put together capital improvements plan, policy-wise, and then develop the list. One is update ordinances, which we just talked about, so got that on our list. Personnel issues, staffing, salaries, and what have you. Training, efficiency, productivity. One on public service delivery, making sure all our public services are delivering sufficiently, and whether there's additional that we need or improvements needed. But we have, under public service, you got things like water and sewer, existing services, garbage collection, beach, emergency planning. We've talked about putting an emergency plan together for snow or hurricane or whatever. Well, that goes under services that the town provides to the public. Last one I had was economic development. Things like websites and marketing, administrative kinds of things. It's not really capital related. So those were the priorities that we culled out of these massive lists I think you see in front of you. And we've assigned, again, pairs within the council to say, okay, Paul, you have capital improvement plan. Steve Bennett and I are doing that. So we've divvied up these that will now put our plans together as to how we're going to try to tackle them.
Okay, great. So I just threw that in there, so if you want to take a look at it. And then the last item is again from Paul. He had to write, he went to the commissioner's course, held at the state, and he had to write and submit a answer to how Cape Charles handles the SWOT, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So he we didn't have that in our comp plan. Some comp plans have that. So he went through the comp plan and extracted those that he thought fit in those categories, and then he added some other ones that, because the comp plan is now almost 2 years old, things that have occurred since then. This is a great thing for us to use when we get ready for the comp plan. So thanks for doing that. And so I want to make sure that you all saw that. I think it's a pretty good indication. I mean, like, some of the threats are right on, and I mean, it's, so.
Yeah, I think that myself, it's a major step forward, and I think that, you know, coming to grips with this early will keep us from spending too much, because it's brand new. There's a lot of, I know there's going to be a lot of back and forth as to whether we want to, not exactly air our dirty linen, but it's going to be refreshing for some, but staggering for others to see all the negatives being floated out there as well as the positives. So that's going to, I'm sure, can provoke a lot. And maybe it'll get a lot of the town in participating in interest too. That'd be great too, to get as much participation as possible. But it's radical, so it's good in that sense. But it will need time to be mulling about these things. But and it's a way of preparing. And in the last month or two, a couple of things that have come to my mind, not exactly like this, but things that could become problematical if we haven't thought about them in advance, is that this time around, I think we need to be working more closely with other groups than we have before. Like, I saw the current plan, the 16th plan, a whole group that looks like it's referring out to Main Street, you know, that are going to be doing, or already doing the same things, and we don't want to duplicate efforts. So say, okay, we're going to, for this, as parts of the plan, this will be for Main Street. The Harbor Area Review Board Master Plan, you know, I thought that went out the window when all the development was going on out there with the boat repairs and all. But recently, apparently, they're still talking about much the same things as the original plan. There being shops and restaurants and everything for people as they get off the boat. And if that's so, and if there is a real new plan or something, we need to work very closely with that. And then all the business with the railroad has happened recently, and getting back and forth between here and there, all of that stuff is going to, I think, significantly influence this next plan. It seems like the 5 years have passed already, and it took time before we ever got to the.
Well,
so that's a lot of stuff to think about before we start. You know.
Two town council individuals, I think I've mentioned this at a previous planning commission meeting, but I think it was Sela and, was it you, Paul? That did that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, put that together.
Sela Burge and Paul put together a think piece, if you will, on the town harbor and how it could be used with this 40 acres that's out there, part of it. And just remember that there's the 300 feet from the center of the Mason Avenue south that is that is basically set aside for mixed use, commercial mixed use. So anyway.
Yeah, what we really did that for is given the Board of Supervisors looking at what they're going to do with the railroad property. We wanted to make sure, and we put, call it a white paper together, that extracted from about 10 documents all that the town expected, using the harbor area conceptual plan really as a prime, but comprehensive plan and the bike trail and community trail and all that, putting it in a form that we can give to the Board of Supervisors, and you talk to developers, this is what we're expecting, and that's really impetus behind that document.
It has the view sheds in there, it has, you know, some streets laid out, it has some green space, park kind of stuff, it has the multi-use trail that goes around the harbor from the pier, the fishing pier around, which is part of that process anyway. So, all right. Anything else under other business? Any announcements?
I finished my class.
Yay.
So you're a graduate? Well, no, I next weekend. Next Monday.
Okay, so we still have 2 people that need to go, right? Keith and Diane.
Yes. Pardon? It is.
It's in the budget for 2020.
Have we heard any dates?
We can use those dates.
2020?
It's in the 2020 budget,
Yeah.
so it won't happen until 1 July?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's in Richmond still, right?
No, this was in Harrisburg,
Oh, really?
so I'm not sure where the next one, I guess they rotate it around, so I'm not sure where the next one is.
Well, it's well worth it, so it's a good thing. It's a 2.5 day thing, so.
And I tried to network. I asked the class a question, and I'm gonna berate them when I get there next week, because 2 people responded to me out of, I don't know, 30, 35 people. So it's like, hey guys, good luck.
And you'd be surprised, but there are some commissioners that get quite a big salary. If you're a commissioner at Fairfax County,
That was so surprising.
yeah, I mean,
We had to make a motion.
I'll second
yeah. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you for coming out.